We're at the last stage of our tutorial where we just need to add a main title and some name titles in our close-up comps. There's a couple of tweaks I want to make and I'll go through those now. The first one is this rain scene at the bottom. It needs to be slightly longer because we're going to be revealing our main title text here. We need it to be on screen long enough to be read after it's been revealed, and it's going to reveal somewhat slowly. So let's move the time indicator to the 30-second mark and try to be exact. So with the bottom rain scene layer selected, hold Shift and drag it towards the time indicator. You should feel it snap to the time indicator once it gets there. Then hover over the in point of that layer. You should see this icon, which is an arrow that points to either direction. Click and drag whilst holding the Shift key, and it should snap to the point where these two layers meet. I'm also going to change the colour of this layer to be green. I just want you to be able to know which layer I'm going to be talking about. So from now on, I'll just be calling this the green rain scene layer. So with the green rain scene layer selected, press S and then hit I to go to the in point of that layer. What we're going to do is animate the scale of this composition slightly. I think it just needs a little movement. There's movement in all these comps that lead up to it, and this one's just stationary, and I think this would be less interesting if we just left it this way. So I'm going to have it gradually increase to 115%. So with our tweaks made, let's bring in our bleed assets. So select your video assets folder, hit Command I and navigate to where you saved those files. And then let's just import those files now. With those brought in now, let's make a new composition and let's call it main title. With the asset comp folder selected, let's create a new folder. Hold Shift and 8 to make an asterisk, and let's call this title comps. Let's drag our main title into that folder. Double click it to go into that composition if it's not already open for you. Then let's select a font. I'm going to choose Impact. I think a big chunky font is going to be most suitable for this. You don't have to use Impact, you're free to make your own choice here. For the title, I'm going to choose Rainy Scene, since that's just what it is. Then I'm going to increase the size of this font quite a bit. I want it to be in the middle. That's close enough, I guess. Let's press Command R to reveal our rulers. And let's drag these out. First of all, let's get rid of our title action safe. These are no longer necessary. Press V to activate your selection tool again. And let's do the same for the other end. Drag another guide to the end of our words here. Okay, I'm going to zoom in a few times with the full stop key. And I'm also using the space bar for the hand tool. Okay, so now I'm going to select Helvetica as my secondary font. And I'm going to type in the word the. Let's zoom out because it's way too big at the moment. Let's just select it and make it much smaller. Maybe a touch bigger, at least the width of the R. I'm going to make a copy of that layer and drag it below rain scene. Okay, so selection tool again and drag that here, and then I'm going to type in show. It needs to be caps really. Okay, so selection tool again and drag that here. Yeah, that's fine. Alright, so with the rain scene selected, let's add a gradient. Come up to the effects and presets panel and type in the word ramp. Drag the gradient ramp onto our text layer. And let's change the colour to be a subtle off-white kind of yellow. This cursor will change the angle of which our colour affects our text here. We want it to be darker on one side more than the other, just so that it's uneven and looks a bit more natural. We don't want it to be a perfect one colour. So let's go back into our main scene. Grab the title we just made and drop it over the green rain scene layer at the bottom here. So let's not have it come in right away. We want our flash transition to happen and then our text can bleed in. I think maybe 20 frames should do it. So let's say 10, 20. Well, I'm sure you can see that our main title is a little hard to see here. So what we need to do to fix that is add a few drop shadows to lift that off our scene slightly. So with the main title selected, let's change the colour of that layer. I'm going to go for fuchsia so that it stands out a lot more. So if the main title layer is still selected, double click drop shadow to apply it. So let's start making some adjustments. Increase the distance and the opacity quite a lot, and then the softness. I'm going to get rid of the title action safe again because we don't need to see it. Duplicate the drop shadow again. And I'm going to make it come up from a different direction. And I'm just going to increase the softness a whole lot. This will allow our words the and show stand out a lot more. I mean, if you have a look at what it was like before and then you have a look at what it's like now, you can see the effect the drop shadows had for us. Okay, so we need to make this transitional now, and for that I'm going to use the bleed middle. I'm going to drag this above the main title layer, and I'm also going to make it fuchsia. This way we know that they're associated to each other. So make sure that the endpoints are in line with each other. Come down to the toggle switches and modes, and we're going to select a track matte. Select Luma inverted, and let's see that now. It does bring in our main title quite nicely, I think. Yeah, that does look really good. What we're going to do now is make some secondary titles for these close-up scenes. So let's start by making a new composition. Come to composition, new composition, and we'll call it title 1. Let's turn on title action safe and let's drag this comp into the appropriate folder. We want to make sure that our project stays tidy during the time that we're working on it. Okay, so let's add our first title. This can be used for any kind of text really. We're just going to put some placeholder text in. And I think off the top of my head, I'll call this one Mr. Name. It needs to be impact as well, I think. Mr. Name, the famous actor. I'm sure you've heard of him. Let's position that here. We also need that gradient ramp, so let's hop into our main title and copy the effect. Select the rainy scene text layer and then select the gradient ramp, hit Command C and jump back into our Mr. Name comp and just paste that on the Mr. Name layer. So we can make our transition happen in here rather than in our actual close-up composition. This will just help us keep it a little bit more tidy because there are quite a few layers in that close-up composition. Let's choose a different one of our video assets this time. I'm going to go for bleed from left. So I'm just going to change the position slightly, and we're going to select Luma Inverted Matte to bring our text on here. Come to the title comps folder in the project panel, and we need to make a few copies of this. We need 5. So 2, 3, 4, 5. And let's go into title 2. And let's change that to Mrs. Name. You know, they're a famous couple. And let's use a different one of our bleed transitions for this. I'm going to go for bleed from top. Let's drag it down a little bit further. I think it would take quite a while to reveal if we left it exactly where it is, and we want it to begin fairly promptly. Let's actually drag it here for now, just so that we can see the point of which we see where it starts to come in. Okay, so let's put those layers in the correct order and select Luma Inverted Matte. There we are, Mrs. Name. Okay, let's go into title 3 and let's change that to another name. How about we just call it Other, or Other Guy, that famous other guy. Okay, so let's do bleed from top again, but actually what we're going to do is turn it around. So with bleed from left selected in your layer panel, drag bleed from top holding Alt, and when you're directly above it and release, it should replace it perfectly. So with that replaced, let's just rotate it round now so that the bleed is occurring from the other direction. Let's bring it down here. There we go. Well, it still needs to be a bit further, I think. Maybe, well, it needs to come in a little sooner. I'll also check the other ones as well. Let's check these and make sure they're coming in an appropriate time. Yeah, these all need to be coming in a little bit sooner as well. Alright, we're almost there. Okay, let's jump into title 4 and let's think of one of our other favourite actors. Let's just change this one to Another, and let's go for bleed from middle again. So use the command that we did before, holding Alt with both layers selected, drag and replace. What we're going to do with bleed from middle this time though is manipulate it slightly so that it comes in slightly different from our main title. We can rescale and rotate these. The main thing we need to be concerned about is that our text is covered, so that way it definitely reveals the whole of our text. Let's do our last one and we'll call it Last One, and we'll use bleed from left. But this time let's make it bleed from right. Oh, it's already on bleed from left, what am I doing? Let's just rotate that round so that now it's bleeding from the right. Let's squeeze it a bit slightly so it comes in a little bit quicker too. I'm also going to rotate it so that it comes in more of an angle. Okay, so I'm being a bit picky now. I'm just going to rotate it so it's revealed in the direction that we're going to be reading it. So it's time to bring those now into our close-up comps. So let's just close all of these title comps. Open close-up 1 and let's go in about 10 frames and bring in title 1. Let's bring it to the top here. Another thing we're going to need to borrow from our main title is the drop shadow. If you go back into the main rainy scene and then select our main title and go to the effects controls and then copy the drop shadow with Command or Control C. With those effects now copied, let's jump back into Close-Up 1 and have the title selected and paste in those effects. And now, as you can see, it stands out a whole lot more straight away. Let's drag Mr. Name up to the right hand corner, just so that's in the safety area here. Let's go back into the project panel and now open Close-Up 2. I'm going to work at a third resolution to speed things up here, and then I'm going to bring in Title 2. I'm going to position this so it starts coming in at about 10 frames again. And then I'm going to paste in our drop shadows. I think this can probably be okay towards the middle right area. It doesn't have to be in the top right all the time. At the moment, I just don't want it to cover most of this picture here. Yeah, I think that's okay here. We might have to make a few minor tweaks anyway. So anyway, let's go to Close-Up 3. Again, I'm going to jump ahead 10 frames, and this time I'm going to be bringing in Title 3. Other guy needs the drop shadows too, so let's paste that on. I'm going to drag the other guy down over to the left. Let's drop it down, maybe bottom left. I'm going to select third resolution to speed things up again. Actually, no, I'm going to go top left. Maybe middle actually. Let's do middle, right? Sorry, I'm so indecisive. But middle is where I'm going to stick with now. Okay, so Close-Up 4 is next, and I'm going to select third resolution as well. Okay, so let's just bring in Text 4. And we've still got our drop shadows already copied, so we can paste that directly onto this title now. Again, I'm going to have this coming in at about 10 frames for now, but it's quite likely, you know, once we've seen this all together, we're going to have to make some tweaks. But 10 frames now is still all right. Okay, so I'm going to just choose another position for this. Let's go top right again. Bear with me whilst I try to choose a position for this. Again, being a little bit indecisive. Okay, let's go back to our project panel, and we're selecting the last comp now and our last title. So let's drag that in. Let's jump ahead again 10 frames and bring the title in. And with the title layer selected, I'm going to paste in those drop shadows one more time. So I'm going to scale this one up a little bit as well. And I'm just going to position that towards the top so we're not covering over our text on these Polaroids. So let's have a review of what we've just done and go back into our main scene one more time. And let's drag back to the beginning and drag it through to make sure everything's all right. I'm going to go back down to a third resolution one more time just to make sure my computer can keep up. And let's drag through. Here comes our first title. Also, we can see the text on our Polaroid deteriorating here, and also our transition bringing in our text nicely as well. Our suspect's text smudges away. Great, I'm not seeing anything that we need to change here. I'm imagining some kind of fast-paced thriller type music to accompany this, so it wouldn't be too slow anyway. There we go, I spoke too soon. Here's one thing we need to change. our text doesn't really have enough time to reveal itself here, so let's go back into Close-Up 4 and drag that back so that the transition occurs just in time. So I'm going to go into Title 4 and do some time remapping for Bleed Middle. So select Bleed Middle and right click and go to Time, Enable Time Remapping. So get to the point where the text is finally revealed and then come over here to add another keyframe, and then let's drag that to the left. I'm going to go for 2.5 seconds now. That should be enough time for it to be read. Okay, so let's go back into the main scene to see if I'm right. Actually, 2 seconds is going to be better. Yeah, I think that's enough time for it to be read, bearing in mind, like I said, the music would be a bit fast-paced for this. Okay, so we can also see that we need to change the timing for last one as well. Making changes and edits along any kind of process during a project's creation is quite natural. That's not me just coming up with excuses, by the way. Okay, so back into Title 5. And we're going to do some time remapping again. So that's right click, time, enable time remapping. Let's move along to where our text is fully revealed, and then let's hit another keyframe. Drag that keyframe to about 2.5 seconds. That should be fine. Let's just check that's come through okay. Yeah, I like that. And let's just come to the end of the green rainy scene layer. With the layer selected, press O for the out point. Let's drag the work area to close it off, holding Shift. And if you remember, let's hover over the light grey area, right click and select Trim to Comp. And that's it, we've finished our rainy scene show title sequence tutorial. Thanks for putting up with my indecisive moments there. I just wanted to make a project in real time so you could see the process and all the problems and the fixes that come along with that kind of project really. Anyway, thank you for taking part in this tutorial. I've got a few other ideas that I might try, so maybe I'll see you again. So from rainy London, it's goodbye for now. I hope that wasn't too cheesy.